Liverpool and Sheffield were the two main venues for the wheelchair, maybe Leeds as well. But anyway, yeah, hopefully there's going to be some opportunities there where the games maybe don't conflict with the main, the men's games, which is the main event, obviously the headline act. That we can get along to some of those in that tournament and support our boys there.
Very good. I'll certainly hope to get to some of those games.
Okay, I think Yorkshire dominates it at the moment. Yorkshire and Kent, remarkably, have dominated the wheelchair game. So maybe for us on this side of the Pennines, we're catching up in catch-up mode. Okay, that is all the other results well and truly covered. Now we are going to make our predictions for the next lot of playoff games around the world of rugby league. Super League playoffs move on to the Eliminator 2 on Thursday night, 7:45pm. Of course, it's on Sky, and it's Salford versus Castleford. I'll let you go first on this one. And before we give our predictions, so this is rare for the Super League pod. We actually know the 19-man squads for this game before we give our guesses on what's going to happen. So we know that Salford are named an unchanged 19, so potentially an unchanged 17 as well. It's I think Josh Wood and Greg Burke who were the two that might come in that didn't play last week, but it's an unchanged 19 from last week. Castleford, meanwhile, make two changes. Mike McMeekin and Callum Turner drop out from last week's squad, which means the experienced Nathan Massey and the absent for some time, Greg Eden, come back into their squad. So you'd expect Eden to come straight back in onto the wing and Massey to come straight back into the side.
You would. I mean, McMeekin's obviously a significant miss still for Castleford. He didn't play last week and obviously isn't fit to return. Now, and I think that's a big loss for them. I'm really looking forward to this game, though. I mean, both sides put up a very good performance last week. They were absolutely in the spirit of what playoff rugby is all about.
Yeah.
I think it will be an equally tight game. I'm actually sitting with Rob and the Castleford crowd for this, but I've got a feeling that Salford might just squeak it, Mark, and with Hastings in the team. Pulling them around the park as long as you can see out of both eyes. I think they ought to win by 4. What do you say?
I'm sure the eye drops will have worked their magic by now. And I really hope they do, because we don't want a big star name like that being out of a game like this. To be honest, if it wasn't my wedding anniversary, can you believe Emma's stuck by me for 4 years of this bollocks? If it wasn't my wedding anniversary, I'd have made the trip to Salford to Barton to watch this game as well, to be honest, because I feel like it will be a fantastic atmosphere. And it should be a hugely intense game on the field. I'm going a little bit with kind of what I would prefer to happen. I've enjoyed Salford more this year. I've kind of followed their progress from the very start of the season because I went to their first game and they absolutely entertained me in that first game. And I also saw them in the pre-season as well. So I've kind of followed them along the whole way and I'm sticking with them. I think Salford by 8 and they'll roll on to the second semi-final. Yeah.
Very good. So we're both predicting Salford to win and a very unhappy Fat Boy Rob on Thursday evening.
I think as long as the teams can both play up to the same sort of commitment and intensity that they played last week, no one should walk away from this one disappointed, and I really hope that no one does. A game that one of us will walk away from disappointed, David, is Friday night's game, 7:45pm. It's the first semi-final. The winner of this will be at Old Trafford. The loser gets to go again against the winner of the second eliminator. It's, of course, St Helens versus Wigan at the Totally Wicked Stadium. I don't know how we divvy this one up. I don't know how we start on this
Where
one.
do we start? I think it's going to be an immense game of rugby league.
Well, last week, Wigan and Salford were the two best form sides going into that match in terms of Super League results. We've now got the best two sides in terms of Super League results and form, because Salford lost a game last week. So it's Wigan and St Helens now who are on their winning runs in the Super League. So that bodes for a great game, doesn't it?
It does.
No suspensions, disappointingly for some, but relievingly for others.
Not for me. I'm very happy that Tony Clubb plays. He makes no meters anyway. So
he doesn't, right?
So this whatever time of year this is being played, this game is always huge, and I've no reason to believe this will be anything other than a magnificent game of rugby league with Warriors battling it out on both sides. I mean, I think clearly Wigan's defence has been at the heart of the late season surge, backed up obviously by some magnificent performances from some of the outside backs, and seeing players like Budgie come back into the team, and Gildort's playing so well off the back of that defence. Saints have obviously got some question marks over them. You never tire of raising the fact, Mark, that we've not done ourselves any favours in quite a number of semi-finals over recent times in the competition.
It's just facts, isn't it?
Yeah, it is facts.
But it's history as well, and history doesn't necessarily have to be repeated.
No, it doesn't. And and another fact is, of course, that Saints have been by far and away the best side in the league this year.
And beaten Wigan 3 times. And
both on attack and on defence. We've been by far the best. And I think the interesting question here for us is whether we can show the patience and the attacking verve allied to defensive steel in the semi-final that we've seen throughout the season. Because if we do, we ought to win the game. But obviously, some of those question marks still remain, and it's really important for Saints to I think to win this game and to go on to win the grand final and put to bed some of the sort of storylines that are around the club over being bottlers, which I don't think are fair. But I think
you lost 5 grand finals in a row, then could barely win a semi-final after it, David. Let's.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But we've still won more Super League championships than Wigan. So and I think this is where
in the last decade.
Yeah, but I think this is where it will tell, though, is if you look at why did we lose 5 grand finals in a row? It was because Leeds had a very, very good side. If you look at the players that were playing in that team with Peacock and Sinfield and Maguire and Burrow, they had a really, really good team with some warriors at the heart of that team. And I think I don't think you can accuse Saints of being bottlers. I think what you can say is, when it comes to the big games, have Saints got the warriors in the heart of the team that great champion sides like Leeds and dare I say sort of with O'Loughlin and Lulai playing at Wigan and some of the early Bradford teams who've got, and indeed
the Saints sides that had Long and Sculthorpe and Cunningham.
Long, Sculthorpe, Cunningham, Chris Joint, those were huge warriors who dragged Saints
when they were falling on the floor.
Yeah, when
late stages in grand finals
after a magnificent drop goal. So when sometimes you need players to be able, when the thing's going against you, you need players to be able to stand up and be counted and drag you over the line. And I think it is a genuine question as to whether Saints have got those players or not. And we need to find out over the next couple of games. One of the other things you've raised quite frequently in the last few weeks, I think, Mark, and when we go through the stats, is the tackle completion rate. And I've got a bit of a theory on this one that
Yeah, so to set the scene for people who haven't picked up on this, oftentimes over the last 2 months of the season, Saints, even when they've won games, have had a tackle success rate in the mid 80s, sort of 85, 86, 87%, when you'd normally expect through the course of the last 5 years that I've been tracking this sort of stuff, winning sides would generally have a tackle success rate above 90%. They would generally have a better tackle success rate than their opposition as well. Yeah. And this St Helens side have continued to win in Super League, but haven't had that. That's the context.
Yeah, I think that's right. And if you look at it across the season, it's 90% just for Saints. I've noticed a couple of things about Saints this year which I think are different on the defensive front. The first is the line speed. So we are much, much faster on the line than we were last year. Now, I can't prove it. I don't have the stats to hand, but I've watched every Saints game, and I can tell you we are far, far faster off the line.
I think something that supports that is I think you're far, far fitter this year than you were last year. I think you've got more durability, and that allows you to maintain a line speed throughout an 80 minutes. So when you might have dropped off in the past, you'll still seem fast this year.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, another thing that speed off the line has given us is, I believe, and again, I don't have the stats to back it up, but just from watching the games, that we are keeping teams at much greater arm's length. So teams are not making it into our red zone anywhere near as much as they did in previous games. Our line defence is still good, but we're not having to use it anywhere near as much. We've held teams inside their own half a lot more this year than we have done in previous years, and I think it's contributed significantly to the fact that we've conceded far fewer tries than anyone else in the league, and we did last year. I think the second thing, and this is where it comes down to the tackle success percentage that I've seen Saints doing this year is I think we're a little less concerned about whether the first man in the tackle actually makes the tackle. So what we seem to be doing is, particularly with wide runners, and Matty Lees, when he was in the side, was doing this a lot.
Matty Lees is a fine example, actually. You tend to find your sort of enforcers whose arms go over the top of the shoulders more than they should, are the players who go and do that and yet miss a load of tackles. And I'm not saying that as Matty Lees is the only thing, because Wigan had a player who did that all the time, Michael McAlorum. So so I'm on board with this theory so far.
Yeah, so I'm not saying we're hitting players high, but what I am saying is we get something on the runners, particularly the big runners, and then we sweep in with defenders left and right to put them down in the tackle. So we're not as worried about whether we've got a few players in the side who are missing 6, 7, 8 tackles a game, as long as what they're doing is taking momentum out of the opposition's runners, and then we're sweeping in and making the tackles with the left and players on the left and right of.
I'm buying your theory, because another thing that plays back into that is the fitness thing, right? So the one risk you take from having that bump the first tackle rather than wrap up on the first tackle approach that you're saying people like Lees, people like Ashworth, people like Amor, people like that have adopted, is an offload. And what an offload does is it obviously means you have to then go and make another collision, redirect, all that sort of stuff that tires you out. Now, if you're fitter than anyone else, you can cover those offloads without them leading to the more damaging thing, which is a break. And Saints are doing that. So, do you know what? Whilst I was totally clinging to this, your theory makes sense, and I actually think it's not as big as a worry as I've maybe thought it should be.
No, I think those two are the biggest differences we've seen in Saints defence over the course of the season. I think the one other one I would add is we've got much better at the inside ball. So we very, very rarely concede a break on the inside ball. if teams are going to break on us, we're usually pushing them out